Victor Wembanyama walks the ball toward half-court after blocking a shot into the third row. Dylan Harper receives the outlet pass and immediately pushes the pace. Tobias Harris fills the lane. Stephen Castle runs toward the corner. And trailing behind the play, completely unguarded because two defenders are already staring at Wembanyama, is the greatest shooter basketball has ever seen. Harper kicks the ball backward. Stephen Curry catches it from 30 feet. The building rises before the ball even leaves his hands. Splash. Now imagine trying to defend that lineup 7 times in a playoff series. This is absolute wishful thinking. There is no confirmed report that Golden State has officially placed Curry on the trade market. In fact, recent reporting is pointed toward the Warriors discussing another short-term extension with him, and his current deal already runs through the 2026-27 season. But let's entertain the impossible. What happens if Golden State finally decides that its championship window has closed? What happens if Curry wants one more legitimate opportunity to chase a 5th championship? And what happens if the San Antonio Spurs decide that their young core is ready for the ultimate veteran addition? Because if Stephen Curry ever became available, San Antonio would have something few contenders could offer. A generational superstar in Victor Wembanyama, a championship-ready young roster, multiple guards capable of defending for Curry, and enough valuable contracts, prospects, and draft capital to at least force Golden State to answer the phone. So today, we are entering full basketball fantasy mode. Could the Spurs realistically trade for Stephen Curry? What would the price be? Would De'Aaron Fox have to be involved? What would the starting lineup look like? And would pairing Curry with Wembanyama create the most unguardable two-man combination in NBA history? Let's break it all down. First, why would Golden State even consider this? The emotional answer is simple. It probably would not. Curry is not merely the Warriors' best player, he is the player who transformed the entire franchise, helped deliver 4 championships, and changed the way basketball is played. Trading him would be one of the most painful decisions any organization has ever made. But basketball eventually forces every dynasty to confront reality. Curry is now 38 years old, although his production remains remarkable. He averaged 26.6 points during the 2025-26 season and remained one of the league's most dangerous offensive players. Golden State, however, did not remain at the same championship level. The Warriors finished their season in the play-in tournament, and their dependence on Curry remained obvious. Golden State went 23-16 when he played during one stretch of the season, and only 4-8 without him. That tells us 2 things. First, Curry can still drive winning basketball. Second, the Warriors still haven't developed a reliable life after Curry. At some point, Golden State must choose between extending the era for as long as possible or beginning a complete rebuild while Curry still possesses enormous value. Again, there is currently no verified indication that they have chosen the second option. But in this hypothetical scenario, let's assume the Warriors approach Curry honestly. They tell the roster they are no longer close enough to championship contention. They offer him the opportunity to select a destination, and Curry identifies San Antonio as a place where he could compete immediately without joining a veteran super team that has already been constructed. That is where the Spurs enter the conversation. Why San Antonio would be so appealing? Stephen Curry and Victor Wembanyama may be the most ridiculous offensive pairing imaginable. Wembanyama already bends defenses because of his height, shooting range, finishing ability, and lob threat. Stephen Curry bends defenses the moment he crosses half court. Place them in the same pick and roll, and there may not be a correct defensive answer. If Wembanyama sets the screen and Curry's defender goes underneath, Curry launches a 3. If the defender fights over the screen, Curry turns the corner. If Wembanyama's defender steps up, the tallest and longest player on the court rolls freely toward the rim. If the weak side defender rotates to stop that lob, Curry passes to an open shooter. If the defense switches, Curry attacks a center or Wembanyama posts up a guard. And if the defense sends 2 players at Curry, Wembanyama receives the ball with a 4-on-3 advantage. Golden State built a dynasty around Curry's gravity and Draymond Green's short-roll decision-making. Now replace the short-roll target with Wembanyama. That almost feels unfair. San Antonio's official roster is already led by Wembanyama, Fox, Harper, Castle, and Harris, giving the Spurs several creators and perimeter defenders who could theoretically complement Curry. The Spurs wouldn't need Curry to defend the opponent's best guard. Castle could do that. Harper could take another difficult matchup. Wembanyama would protect everything behind them. Curry could focus on what he does better than anyone in league history, destroying defensive structures. The biggest obstacle, Curry's contract. This is where fantasy has to meet reality. Curry is scheduled to make roughly $62.6 million during the 2026-27 season. That means San Antonio can't just send Golden State a young player, one draft pick, and good intentions. The salaries have to work. And because the NBA's apron rules limit how much salary certain teams can aggregate or receive, the financial structure could become extremely complicated. Teams operating above the first or second apron face additional trade restrictions, including tighter salary matching and, in some cases, limits on combining multiple salaries. For San Antonio, the most obvious outgoing contract would be De'Aaron Fox. Fox is scheduled to make close to $50 million in 2026-27, while Devin Vassell is around $27 million and Keldon Johnson is around $18 million. That gives the Spurs several possible constructions, but make no mistake, if San Antonio traded for Curry, De'Aaron Fox would most likely have to be included. The Spurs would not acquire Curry to place him beside Fox, Harper, and Castle while destroying their financial flexibility. That would create too many ball-dominant guards and too much salary concentrated in one position. The cleaner move would be replacing Fox with Curry. Possible trade package number 1. Here is the most straightforward framework. San Antonio receives Steph Curry. Golden State receives De'Aaron Fox, Keldon Johnson, 2 future first-round picks, and 1 future pick swap. Financially, Fox and Johnson would send out close to the amount required to absorb Curry's contract. Basketball-wise, Golden State would receive an all-star level guard who could keep the team competitive while being significantly younger than Curry. Johnson would provide another useful rotation player and movable contract. The draft compensation would give Golden State tools for the future. Would the Warriors accept that? Probably not immediately. Curry's value extends far beyond his production. He represents ticket sales, merchandise, sponsorship value, franchise identity, and emotional connection with the fan base. Golden State would likely request one of San Antonio's premium young players. That is where the negotiation becomes dangerous.
Would the Warriors demand Harper or Castle? Golden State would almost certainly ask for Dylan Harper. The Spurs should say no. Harper's rookie season showed why San Antonio views him as a foundational piece. The Spurs' own team statistics listed him among their leaders, and he delivered major performances during their postseason run. Trading a young guard with star potential for one season of a 38-year-old Curry would be an enormous risk, even for Curry. The same applies to Castle. Castle's size, defense, playmaking, and compatibility with Wembanyama make him too important to San Antonio's long-term identity. The Spurs should build the trade around Fox, salary filler, and draft capital. The entire purpose would be to place Curry around the young core, not destroy the young core to acquire him. Wembanyama is obviously untouchable. Harper should be untouchable. Castle should be close to untouchable. Carter Bryant should also remain unless Golden State refuses to negotiate without another prospect. San Antonio must establish a clear limit. Curry could turn the Spurs into immediate championship favorites, but he would also come with age, injury, and contract risk. The Spurs cannot trade 8 years of their future for 1 or 2 seasons of greatness. Possible trade package number 2. A more aggressive offer could look like this. Spurs receive Steph Curry. Warriors receive De'Aaron Fox, Devin Vassell, a future first-round pick, 2 pick swaps. This package would give Golden State more immediate basketball value. Fox could become the primary ball handler. Vassell could provide shooting and secondary scoring. Golden State could remain competitive without pretending it was beginning a complete rebuild. But this would be a massive sacrifice for San Antonio. Vassell is one of the team's best floor spacers and a natural fit beside Wembanyama. If the Spurs traded both Fox and Vassell, their perimeter depth would take a significant hit. That would place more offensive responsibility on Harper and Castle. It could still work, but the Spurs would need to replace Vassell's shooting through another move. Personally, I would prefer the Fox and Johnson structure. Keeping Vassell would give Curry another dangerous shooter and prevent defenses from loading every available body toward the Curry-Wembanyama action. What the Spurs' starting lineup could look like. Assuming the trade centers on Fox and Johnson, San Antonio could begin games with point guard Stephen Curry, shooting guard Dylan Harper, small forward Stephon Castle, power forward Tobias Harris, center Victor Wembanyama. Think about the balance of that lineup. Curry provides shooting, movement, and veteran control. Harper provides size, downhill creation, and secondary playmaking. Harris spaces the floor. Castle takes the toughest perimeter assignment and operates as another ball handler. Wembanyama anchors the defense and becomes the ultimate screening partner. San Antonio could also use Castle as the nominal point guard and allow Curry to operate off the ball. That may be even dangerous. Curry became legendary partly because he does not stand still after making a pass. He relocates, he cuts, he runs defenders through multiple screens. He creates confusion without touching the basketball. Castle or Harper could initiate the offense, while Curry forces two defenders to chase him around the court. Meanwhile, Wembanyama could operate from the high post, where he would see every passing lane. The Spurs would not simply be adding Curry's scoring, they would be adding the chaos his movement creates. The defensive question. The obvious concern would be defense. Curry has competed throughout his career, but San Antonio would have to protect a 38-year-old guard during a long season. That is why keeping Castle and Harper would be so important. Castle could guard elite point guards. Harper's size would allow him to defend larger guards and wings. Wembanyama could erase mistakes near the rim. Curry would take the least threatening perimeter matchup and conserve energy for offense. In playoff series, opponents would still attempt to involve him in every screening action, but San Antonio would have more answers than most teams. The Spurs could switch Castle and Harper. They could play Wembanyama in multiple coverages. They could pre-switch Curry away from certain actions. They could pressure ball handlers knowing the league's best rim protector was positioned behind them. Curry would not transform the defense. He would not need to. He would transform the offense while the young core protected him defensively. How Curry would change Wembanyama's career. This may be the biggest reason San Antonio would consider the move. Curry could accelerate Wembanyama's offensive development. Wembanyama would learn how a championship-level superstar prepares. He would learn how Curry manipulates defenders before receiving the ball. He would learn how to screen at different angles. He would learn when to hold the screen, when to slip, and when to re-screen. Most importantly, he would experience playoff basketball beside a player who has faced every possible defensive coverage. Curry has won 4 championships, 2 MVP awards, and a Finals MVP. That experience cannot be duplicated through coaching alone. Imagine Curry teaching Wembanyama how to recognize the moment an opponent begins panicking. Imagine him helping Harper understand late-game pace. Imagine Castle studying how a championship offense creates advantages without forcing the action. Even after Curry retired, the knowledge could remain inside the organization. That is the hidden value.
The risks cannot be ignored. This move would not be risk-free. Curry would be 38. His salary would be enormous. The Spurs would be surrendering an all-star guard in Fox and valuable draft capital. There would be no guarantee Curry remained healthy throughout an entire playoff run. And if the Spurs traded too many future assets, they could damage their ability to build around Wembanyama during his prime. The Spurs must remember the timeline. Wembanyama is not approaching the end of his window, he is entering it. Harper and Castle are still developing. The Spurs do not need to behave desperately. This trade would only make sense if the price remained reasonable and Curry specifically wanted San Antonio. Without his full commitment, the risk would be too high. So could the Spurs trade for Stephen Curry? Technically, yes. They possess large contracts, valuable players, and enough draft capital to construct a serious offer. Would Golden State trade him? At this moment, there is no confirmed evidence that the Warriors are actively shopping him. Current reporting instead suggests that another extension remains possible. But this is wishful thinking, and in that world, San Antonio may be the most fascinating destination imaginable. The package would likely begin with De'Aaron Fox. The Spurs should attempt to keep Harper, Castle, Vassell, and Wembanyama. The ideal starting lineup would feature Curry, Harper, Harris, Castle, and Wembanyama. And offensively, the Curry-Wembanyama partnership could break basketball. One player demands attention 35 feet from the basket, the other demands attention 10 feet above it. Defenses would have to stretch vertically, horizontally, and mentally on every possession. Would I make the trade? For Fox, Keldon Johnson, in reasonable draft compensation? Absolutely. For Fox, Harper, Castle, and a mountain of picks? No chance. The Spurs should pursue greatness without sacrificing the decade they have already built. But if Stephen Curry ever looked at San Antonio and decided he wanted one final championship run beside Victor Wembanyama, the Spurs would have to explore it. Because opportunities to pair two players who distort basketball this dramatically almost never exist. Curry changed the game by extending the court. Wembanyama is changing it by expanding what a human being can do on that court. Put them together, and the Spurs would not simply become contenders, they could create an offense unlike anything the NBA has ever seen. Would you trade De'Aaron Fox and multiple first-round picks for Stephen Curry, or would you stay patient with San Antonio's young core? Let me know in the comments and subscribe for more Spurs news. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.